On Christmas Day, my daughter gave her stepdad a $20,000 car and gave me a handkerchief. On Christmas Day, my daughter handed her stepdad the keys to a $20,000 car in front of everyone, then turned to me and gave me a handkerchief. I smiled, said thank you, and left early. 2 weeks later, my ex called screaming, and my daughter sent a message that changed everything. My name is Daniel. I'm 46 years old and I live in the US. I'm posting from a throwaway because my daughter is active online and I don't want this traced back to her. I know the title makes me sound pathetic, like I'm jealous of a gift. I promise this isn't about a car versus a handkerchief. It's about what that moment represented 10 years of being slowly replaced in my own child's life, and finally realizing that staying nice was not the same as being respected. I have one daughter, Ava. She's 19. I divorced her mother, Kendra, when Ava was 9. The divorce wasn't explosive in the stereotypical sense, but it was ugly in the quiet way: lawyers, paperwork, passive-aggressive comments, and a constant background pressure to be reasonable. After the divorce, Kendra met a man named Scott. Scott is charismatic, the kind of guy who calls everyone buddy and shakes hands like he's running for office. He's good with optics, good with jokes, good with performing, great stepdad. For years, I told myself I could coexist. I never wanted Ava to feel like she had to choose. I wanted her to have as much love as possible. What I didn't understand at first is that some adults don't see parenting as love, they see it as territory. Kendra didn't hit Ava. She didn't scream at her. She did something more effective. She controlled the story Ava grew up hearing about me. If I was late once because of traffic, it became, "Your dad doesn't prioritize you." If I asked about homework, it became, "Your dad is controlling." If I couldn't afford an expensive trip one year, it became, "Your dad is cheap." I paid child support. On time. I attended school events. I drove in bad weather. I kept a room for Ava even when she only stayed a couple nights a month. I did what I could. But Scott had money. Or at least he had the ability to look like he had money. He'd show up with gifts, new electronics, surprise trips. He didn't have to be consistent. He just had to be impressive. And Kendra framed it as Scott showing up, and me falling short. At first, Ava was a kid. She didn't understand. She just liked the funhouse with the new stuff. Then she became a teenager, and it got worse. Teenagers don't just want love. They want identity. They want to belong to something. And Kendra offered her a narrative where Ava belonged to the new family that was stable and generous and exciting. Meanwhile, I was the complicated dad who lived separately and didn't understand her. I tried to address it gently. I tried therapy with Ava when she was 15. She attended 3 sessions and then refused because she said it was awkward. Kendra supported her refusal. Scott joked that therapy was for people who can't handle life. I should have pushed harder then. I didn't. I thought forcing it would make Ava resent me more. I thought patience would win. Now I'm older and I understand. Patience without boundaries looks like permission. This leads to Christmas. Kendra hosts Christmas Day every year. I used to get Christmas Eve with Ava when she was younger, but as she got older, she started choosing Christmas Day because that's when everyone's together. I didn't fight it. I didn't want to be the reason she felt torn. So every year I show up to Kendra's house, smile at Scott, make small talk, and tell myself it's fine. I bring gifts, I hug my daughter, and I leave early enough to avoid drinking and arguments. This year, Ava told everyone she had a surprise gift for Scott. I didn't think much of it. Ava works part-time and goes to college. I assumed she bought him something thoughtful, maybe a nice watch or a set of tools. After lunch, Kendra clinked her glass and said, "Okay, gifts." We sat in the living room. Ava stood up with this huge grin and said, "I want to give Scott his gift first." Scott looked pleased but tried to act humble. "You didn't have to do that," he said. Ava pulled out a small box. Inside were car keys. Then, Kendra said, loudly, "Oh my God." Scott's eyes widened. "No way." Ava pointed out the window, and there it was, a car in the driveway with a bow on it. Not a brand new luxury car, but a very nice used one, the kind that still costs real money. Ava said, "It was $20,000. Everyone gasped. Kendra put her hand over her mouth like she was in a commercial. Scott hugged Ava tightly. I sat there frozen, trying to keep my face neutral. Scott said, "This is too much," but his smile was huge. Kendra looked at me like she wanted to see my reaction. Not in a concerned way, in a competitive way. Like, what can you do compared to this? Ava then turned to me with a smaller gift bag. She handed it to me quickly. "And this is for you," she said. I opened it. Inside was a handkerchief, the kind you can buy in a bundle at a department store. Not personalized, not meaningful, just a handkerchief. I stared at it. I felt my ears ringing. Everyone was quiet for a second, waiting. Ava smiled awkwardly and said, "I thought you could use it." Scott chuckled. Kendra smiled. I forced a smile and said, "Thank you." Then I excused myself to the bathroom. I locked the door and stared at myself in the mirror. I felt humiliated, but not because of the object. Because of the message, Scott is worth a car, I am worth a token. And I knew where that message came from. It didn't come from a teenage girl inventing cruelty out of nowhere. It came from years of being taught, subtly and repeatedly, that my role was smaller. I walked back out and sat down. I stayed for another 20 minutes. I told Ava I loved her. I hugged her. I hugged my parents, who were also there, and left early. In the car, my hands shook on the steering wheel. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt this dead calm. I went home and sat in my empty kitchen. I looked at the handkerchief on the table and realized this was the moment I either kept swallowing humiliation for the sake of being easy, or I drew a line. So I made a decision. I was done attending holidays at Kendra's house. That night, I texted Ava, "I love you. I'm going home. I'm hurt. But I'm not going to fight today. We'll talk later." She didn't respond. The next morning, Kendra texted me, "Don't make this about money. Ava was trying." Trying. That word made me furious because it was meant to shut down my feelings. I replied one sentence, "I'm not discussing this with you." Then I blocked her. 2 days later, my own mother called me and said, "Ava says you embarrassed her by leaving." Embarrassed her. After she humiliated me in front of everyone. And that's when I realized the story had already been rewritten. So I did the only thing I could do. I started gathering receipts. Because if you're going to set boundaries in a family where optics matter more than truth, you need proof. And the first receipt came from a place I never expected, my daughter's own Venmo. 2 days after Christmas, my friend Aaron texted me something that felt like a punch. "Hey man, sorry about yesterday." That was brutal. Aaron wasn't even at Kendra's house. He heard about it through a mutual. That's how fast family humiliation travels when it's wrapped in a cute Christmas moment. I tried to ignore it. I told myself to focus on the bigger picture. I wanted a relationship with my daughter that wasn't based on gifts, competitions, and public ranking. But the truth is, I couldn't stop thinking about the car. Not because I wanted the car, because the numbers didn't add up. Ava is 19. She works part-time. She's in college. She pays for gas, food, clothes, and whatever social life she has. There is no world where she quietly saves $20,000 without someone helping her. That's what finally pushed me from hurt into concerned. I needed to know where that money came from, because one of two things was true. Ava didn't buy that car, and the gift was staged. Ava did buy it, and she was being financially manipulated. Neither was good. I didn't want to interrogate her like a detective. I wanted facts without turning my daughter into a suspect. So I started with the only neutral evidence in modern family life, payment history. I opened Venmo. Ava and I still had each other added, because years ago she'd asked me to send money for books and groceries. I hadn't checked her public transactions in forever, because honestly I didn't care. But Venmo is messy. It's basically a public diary if you don't lock it down. I searched her name. Her last few visible transactions made my stomach tighten. There were multiple payments from Scott to Ava over the previous 6 months, all labeled with innocent captions. Gas. Books. Help. Love you, kiddo. Proud of you. At first glance, it looked like Scott being generous, but then I noticed amounts. $500, $800, $1,000, $200, $2,000. One payment was $3,500. That's not gas and books, that's funding. Then I saw a payment from Ava to Scott 2 weeks before Christmas. The caption was, "Car deposit." The amount was large enough to be noticeable even without exact numbers. She had sent him money back. So the gift to Scott might have been funded by Scott, funneled through Ava, then presented as Ava's generosity. A performance that made Scott look loved and made me look small. If that's what happened, it wasn't just unfair, it was manipulative. I took screenshots of the visible transactions. I didn't want to weaponize my daughter's finances. I wanted a record in case anyone tried to lie about Ava bought it herself. Then I got a text from my mom again. Ava is upset. She says you didn't even appreciate her gift. My gift. The handkerchief. I stared at the message and felt something cold settle in my chest, because I realized my mother was also buying the narrative. My own mother was helping frame me as ungrateful. I replied calmly, "I'm not discussing this by phone. If Ava wants to talk, she can call me." My mom replied, "Stop making it dramatic." That phrase, "stop making it dramatic," has been used against me for my entire adult life. It's how people shut you down without addressing your pain. So I stopped responding. That night, I wrote Ava a longer message, but I kept it simple and respectful. "Ava, I love you. I'm not angry about a gift. I'm hurt about the message it sent. I want to talk privately, just us. No mom, no Scott, please call me." She didn't respond. 3 days passed. Silence. Then Kendra unblocked herself through a new number because people like her always find a way around boundaries. She wrote, "You're punishing Ava because she loves Scott." I stared at the screen. That sentence wasn't a concern for Ava. It was a trap. It framed my hurt as jealousy of Scott. I didn't reply. I forwarded it to myself and saved it. Because if I learned anything in a decade of co-parenting with Kendra, it's that she uses words like weapons and then pretends she never said them. The next step happened on New Year's Eve. Ava showed up at my door. I didn't know she was coming. I didn't get a text. I opened the door and saw her standing there with her arms crossed, face tight, the same expression her mother uses when she wants to win a conversation. "Can we talk?" she asked. I nodded and let her in. She didn't sit right away. She stood in my living room looking around like she was judging my space. Which was new. My daughter used to flop on my couch and steal snacks from my pantry like she was still a kid. Now she looked like a guest with an agenda. She said, "Why did you leave on Christmas?" I took a breath. "Because I was hurt," I said. Ava rolled her eyes. "Because of a handkerchief?" I felt my stomach twist. "Because of what it meant," I replied. "Because it felt like you were ranking me." Ava scoffed. "You're making it about money," she snapped. "Scott didn't." I stared at her. "Scott didn't what?" Ava's face hardened. "Scott didn't complain," she said. "He was grateful." There it was, the comparison. I said calmly, "Ava, where did the money for that car come from?" Ava blinked like she hadn't expected that question. "From me," she said quickly. I waited. "How?" Ava crossed her arms tighter. "I saved," she said. I nodded slowly. "Okay, then why is Scott sending you thousands of dollars on Venmo?" Ava went still. Her eyes flicked away. "Why are you looking at my Venmo?" she snapped. I didn't raise my voice. "Because I'm worried," I said, "and because the story doesn't add up." Ava's cheeks flushed. "Scott helps me sometimes," she said defensively. "He's generous." "Generous?" I repeated. "Or controlling?" Ava's voice rose. "Stop," she snapped. "You always do this. You always act like mom's the villain." I said, "I'm not talking about your mom right now. I'm asking about the money." Ava hesitated, then said something that made my stomach drop. "Scott said you would try to ruin it." I stared at her. "Scott said that?" Ava nodded, eyes hard. "He said you'd make me feel guilty because you can't compete." "Can't compete?" I exhaled slowly. "Ava," I said, "I'm not competing with Scott. I'm your father." Ava's lip trembled for half a second, then she regained the defensive posture. "You weren't around," she said. That accusation hurt because it was partly true and partly a lie. I was around, but in a divorced father way, limited by custody schedules, school events, and the way Kendra controlled access. I said, "I was around as much as I was allowed," I replied. Ava scoffed. "That's an excuse," she said. Then she said the sentence that revealed what this conversation really was. "Mom says you only care now because you're lonely." Lonely? Kendra wasn't just alienating me. She was poisoning Ava's perception of my emotions. I took a deep breath and said, Ava, I'm going to ask you one thing. Did you buy that car, or did Scott help you buy it to make himself look good? Ava's eyes filled with tears instantly. Anger tears. Humiliation tears. She whispered, You're ruining it. I said gently, I'm trying to protect you. Ava grabbed her coat. I knew you'd do this, she snapped. You can't just be happy. Then she walked out. I stood in my living room staring at the closed door, feeling the same helplessness I felt on Christmas, but sharper now because I could see the mechanism. Ava wasn't just upset. She was defending a narrative she'd been trained to defend. That night, I got a text from Kendra. Congratulations, you made her cry. Scott was right about you. I didn't respond. I sent the screenshot to myself and added it to the folder I'd started, receipts. Because at this point, I wasn't just trying to repair a hurt relationship. I was trying to undo years of manipulation. And the only way to do that with someone like Kendra is to bring truth into the light slowly, with proof, until the lies have nowhere to land. The next receipt came from a place I didn't expect. It came from Scott's own mouth because he called me the next day. And he didn't realize I had him on speaker. Scott called me the next morning at 9:14 a.m. It was from his number, not a blocked one, and that alone told me he felt confident. People don't call directly when they think they're wrong. They call directly when they believe they can control you. I stared at the ringing phone for a second. My first instinct was to ignore it. But then I thought about Ava's face when she left my house, and I realized something. If I didn't address this now, Scott would keep shaping the narrative in a way that made me the enemy. So I answered. Hello, I said. Scott's voice came through calm and friendly, like he was calling a coworker. Daniel, hey, it's Scott. Listen, I think we need to clear the air. Clear the air. That phrase always means someone is about to tell you how you're supposed to feel. I said, okay. Scott sighed, like I was already exhausting him. Ava is really upset, he said. She worked hard on Christmas. You embarrassed her. I kept my voice steady. I left quietly, I said. I didn't cause a scene. Scott chuckled. Leaving was the scene, he replied. You made it about money. I said, I didn't mention money. Scott paused, then said, Come on, man, you're jealous. There it was, the framing. If I was jealous, then nothing I said mattered because it was just ego. I took a breath. Scott, I'm not jealous, I said. I'm concerned. Ava is 19. She doesn't have $20,000. So where did the money come from? Scott laughed, not kindly. So you were looking at her finances? He said. That's creepy. Creepy. Another weapon word. If he could label me creepy, he could make me look unsafe. I said, I saw the Venmo transactions. That's not creepy, it's public. Scott's voice hardened slightly. You shouldn't be stalking her, he said. Stalking. He escalated the accusation fast. I realized I needed this conversation documented. Not for court, just for reality. I put him on speaker and hit record on my phone. Not because I wanted drama. Because I'd lived long enough to know that people like Scott will deny what they said. Scott kept talking. Look, Daniel, he said. Ava finally has a father figure who shows up, who provides, and you're trying to tear that down because you can't stand being second. Second, in my own child's life. I felt my jaw tighten. I am her father, I said calmly. Scott replied, biologically, sure. That sentence made my stomach drop like an elevator. He had said it casually, like it was a fact everyone should accept, like my role had always been temporary. I took a slow breath. Watch your mouth, I said quietly. Scott scoffed. Or what? He said. You'll leave again? You'll sulk? He continued, voice sharp now. Ava is an adult. She sees who's been there. She sees who actually deserves gratitude. Deserves gratitude. Like love was something you earn by buying things. I said, so you admit the car wasn't really from Ava, I replied. Scott paused. Just a fraction. Then he said, we helped her. So what? We helped her. The truth slid out. I said, so you helped her buy you a car, I said. Scott laughed. That's not how it happened, he said quickly. We set it up together. It was a surprise. Ava wanted to do something special. I said, why? I asked. Why did she need to do something that big? Why not a normal gift? Scott's tone went smug. Because she wanted to, he said, and because she appreciates what I've done for her. Not everyone does. He was aiming at me again. I didn't argue. I just asked one more question. Did you tell Ava I would react badly? Scott didn't deny it. He said, I warned her you might get emotional, like that was reasonable. Get emotional. Translation: refuse the narrative. Scott continued, you need to stop poisoning her against us. Kendra is trying so hard to keep things peaceful. I almost laughed. Peaceful. This man had just told me my role was biological. I said, Scott, do not call me again. I told him, if you have something to say it through Kendra. Scott's tone turned cold. Fine, he said, but don't be surprised when Ava stops coming around. You're doing this to yourself. Then he hung up. I sat there staring at my phone, listening to the silence after the call. The recording was saved. I backed it up immediately. Then I called my mom. My mom answered and said, Ava is upset. I said, I know. I replied, Mom, Scott just told me I'm only her father biologically. My mom went silent. He said that? Yes, I said. My mom's voice hardened. That's not his place, she said. That sentence, simple as it was, felt like oxygen. Because for years, everyone avoided confronting Scott's role. They liked him. He made Kendra happy. He brought gifts. He was easy to accept. But now he'd crossed a line my mom couldn't ignore because it wasn't just about me. It was about family identity. My mom said, Do you want me to talk to Ava? I hesitated. Not yet, I said. I need to do this carefully. Because here's the problem. If I came at Ava with accusations, she'd shut down. She'd defend Kendra and Scott. That's what she's been trained to do. I needed to show her the truth in a way she couldn't dismiss as bitterness. So I asked myself, what truth does Ava trust? Not my feelings, not my history, something concrete. Money, records, receipts. If Kendra and Scott were using money to shape Ava's loyalty, then money would also reveal the manipulation. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I pulled out my old child support records and my email archive. I have always paid. I never missed a payment. I never asked for a reduction. Even when money was tight, I paid because I didn't want Ava to suffer and I didn't want Kendra to have ammunition. I downloaded the payment history from the state portal. It showed 9 years of payments. On time. Then I searched my email for custody schedule. I found messages where I asked for extra time and got refused. Messages where I offered to take Ava for holidays and Kendra said it was too disruptive. Messages where I offered to pay for therapy and Kendra said she doesn't need it. I wasn't collecting this to sue anyone. I was collecting it to show Ava something she had never seen, the parts of the story Kendra never told her. Because parental alienation doesn't always look like your dad is evil. Sometimes it looks like omission. Quiet editing, selective memory. That evening, Ava texted me for the first time since she stormed out. Stop talking to Scott. I stared at the message. It was short, angry, defensive. Exactly what Kendra would coach. I replied calmly, I won't be spoken to the way he spoke to me. I love you. If you want to talk, we can meet somewhere neutral. Ava replied, you're jealous. There it was. Scott's script. I didn't argue. I said, I'm not jealous. I'm hurt. Ava didn't respond. Then Kendra called. She didn't start with hello. She started with anger. What did you say to Ava? She demanded. I kept my voice calm. I didn't say anything, I replied. Scott called me. Kendra scoffed. Scott wouldn't call you unless you provoked him, she snapped. I said, he told me I'm only her father biologically. Kendra went quiet for half a second. Then she did what she always does. She minimized. He didn't mean it like that, she said. I said, I recorded the call. Silence. Then Kendra's tone changed. Delete it, she said. That demand confirmed everything. If it was harmless, she wouldn't fear documentation. I said, no, I replied. I'm done being gaslit. Kendra's voice rose. You're trying to ruin my family. I replied calmly, you ruined it when you taught Ava to humiliate me. Chandra hung up. That night, I sent Ava one final message. I am not asking you to choose. I am asking you to know the truth. If you want it, I will show you receipts. If you don't, I will give you space. I love you either way. I didn't think she'd respond. But at 11:48 p.m. Ava texted, "What receipts?" My chest tightened, not with victory hope, small, cautious hope. I replied, "Meet me tomorrow, just you, I'll show you." Ava wrote, "Fine, 1 hour." And that was the first crack in the story Kendra built. Because when an adult child finally asks for receipts, the narrative starts losing power. The next day would be the hardest conversation of my life, and it would determine whether I lost my daughter forever or finally got her back. Ava picked the location, a coffee shop near her campus, midday, public enough that she'd feel in control, neutral enough that she wouldn't feel like she was walking into my territory. I respected that. I arrived 10 minutes early and ordered coffee I didn't even taste. My hands were steady, but my stomach felt like it was full of rocks. When Ava walked in, she didn't hug me. She didn't smile. She sat down across from me with her arms crossed, chin slightly raised, like she was bracing for a lecture. "Make it quick," she said. That sentence hurt, but I didn't react to it. I knew reacting would confirm the script. Dad is dramatic, Dad is emotional, Dad makes everything about him. So I stayed calm. "I'm not here to fight," I said. "You asked about receipts. I'm going to show you receipts." Ava rolled her eyes. "You're acting like this is court." I nodded. "In a way it is," I said. "Because there are two stories, and only one can be true." Ava stared at me, then shrugged like she didn't care. But her eyes were watching closely. She cared. She just didn't want to look like she cared. I pulled out my laptop and opened a folder I'd organized the night before. I kept it simple, no dramatic captions, just facts. First, I showed her my child support payment history from the state portal. Monthly payments, on time, for years. Ava frowned. "Okay," she said. "You paid child support. You were supposed to." "Yes," I said. "And I did, even when I was struggling." Ava's mouth tightened. "Mom said you complained about it." I shook my head. "I never complained to you," I said. "I never wanted you to carry adult issues." Ava didn't respond. She stared at the screen like she was trying to reconcile it with what she'd been told. Then I pulled up emails. Not all of them, just a few key ones. An email where I asked to take her to a father-daughter weekend when she was 14. Kendra replied, "No, she has plans. Don't disrupt her." An email where I asked for Christmas morning 1 year. Kendra said, "We already have traditions. Christmas is at our house." An email where I asked to attend a parent-teacher meeting. Kendra replied, "It's handled." An email where I offered to pay for therapy when Ava was 15 and started having anxiety. Kendra wrote, "She doesn't need therapy. Stop pathologizing her." Ava stared at the emails with a tight face. "I didn't know any of this," she whispered. "That's why I'm showing you," I said quietly. Ava looked up at me, eyes glossy for half a second, then she hardened again. "So what?" she snapped. "That doesn't mean Scott is bad." I took a slow breath. "I'm not here to convince you Scott is evil," I said. "I'm here to show you what happened on Christmas wasn't random." Ava scoffed. "It was a gift." I nodded. "Where did you get the money?" I asked. Ava's jaw tightened. "I saved." I didn't argue. I pulled out the screenshot of the Venmo transactions. I slid the phone across the table without commentary. Ava glanced at it and went still. She stared longer. Her eyes moved line by line. I watched her breathing change. "That's private," she whispered. "It's public," I said calmly. "And it shows Scott sent you thousands labeled books and help. It also shows you sent him a car deposit payment." Ava swallowed hard. "He was helping me," she said. "Helping you buy him a car," I replied. Ava's eyes flashed. "You're twisting it." I shook my head. "I'm reading it," I said. Ava's face flushed. "Mom said he just wanted to teach me financial responsibility," she blurted. The words tumbled out like a rehearsed explanation. I leaned forward slightly. "Ava, does that sound normal to you?" I asked. "To teach responsibility by giving you thousands and then having you buy him a car?" Ava's lips parted, but she didn't answer. Then I said gently, "He wasn't teaching responsibility, he was creating loyalty." Ava snapped, "You're jealous." And there it was again, the one-word shutdown. I didn't bite. I didn't raise my voice. I said, "If I was jealous, I would be asking you for a car. I'm asking you for honesty." Ava's eyes darted away. She looked like she was fighting herself. Then I said, "I recorded Scott's call to me." Ava's head snapped up. "You recorded him?" "Yes," I said. Ava's voice rose. "That's creepy." I held her gaze. "He called me to lecture me," I said. "He said I'm only your father biologically. He said I'm second. He said you deserve gratitude for him." Ava's face went pale. "You're lying," she whispered. I pulled out my phone and played the recording quietly, low enough that strangers couldn't hear. I wasn't trying to humiliate anyone in public. I was trying to show my daughter reality. Scott's voice came through. "Biologically, sure. Then, don't be surprised when Ava stops coming around." Ava's eyes filled with tears instantly. I stopped the audio. I didn't keep playing. I didn't want to torture her. She whispered, "He didn't mean it." I stared at her gently. "Then, why would he say it?" I asked. Ava shook her head, crying now. "Mom said you hated him," she said through tears. "She said you were bitter." I felt my throat tighten. "I didn't hate him," I said. "I stayed polite for 10 years. Ava wiped her face. "He's been so good to me," she said, voice shaking. "He helped with college." I nodded. "And that's complicated," I said. "He can do helpful things and still manipulate. Both can be true." Ava looked down at her hands. "The car was his idea," she whispered. The words came out like a confession. I didn't react with victory, I just listened. Ava continued, quieter. "He said it would prove. I appreciate him. He said it would show everyone who really shows up." My stomach turned. "Show everyone," I repeated. "So it was public." Ava nodded, tears dripping. "Mom loved it," she whispered. "She said it would shut you up." That sentence hit like a punch. I took a slow breath. "So the gift was also a message to me," I said softly. Ava didn't deny it. She cried harder, head in her hands. "I didn't think," she choked. "I didn't think it would hurt you like that." I let the silence sit for a moment. Then I said quietly, "Ava, I'm not angry at you for being manipulated, I'm hurt. But I'm not going to punish you. I want you to be safe." Ava looked up, eyes red. "Are you going to cut me off?" she asked. That question broke my heart because it meant she was used to love being conditional. I shook my head. "No," I said, "but I am going to set boundaries." Ava swallowed. "Like what?" I said, "I won't attend holidays at your mom's house anymore. I won't be in rooms where I'm treated like a prop. If you want time with me, it can be just us, or with people who respect me." Ava nodded slowly. Then she whispered, "Scott is going to be furious." I said, "That's not your job to manage." Ava stared at me like those words were new. I added, "And if anyone tries to pressure you to choose sides, you can say you're choosing honesty." Ava took a shaky breath. "I don't know how to fix this," she whispered. I said, "Start with the truth." Ava nodded, then said, "Can we talk again? Not like this, like normal?" My throat tightened. "Yes," I said. We sat for another 20 minutes, quieter. She asked questions about the divorce, about why I didn't fight harder, about why I kept coming to Kendra's Christmas. I answered honestly, because I thought being polite would protect you. Ava whispered, "It didn't." I nodded. "No," I said. When she left, she hugged me quickly. It wasn't a perfect hug. It was stiff and uncertain, but it was real. The first real connection in a long time. That night, Kendra called me. Not to apologize because people like her don't apologize when caught. She called to threaten. "You filled her head with lies," she snapped. I stayed calm. "Ava heard Scott's voice," I said. She saw the Venmo. Kendra went quiet for a beat, then hissed, "You recorded him? You're insane." I replied, "Don't contact me again unless it's about Ava's schedule." Kendra screamed, "You're ruining my family!" I hung up. Then Ava texted me a message that made my hands shake. "Mom and Scott are fighting. He says I owe him. Mom says you manipulated me. I don't know what to do." I stared at the text and realized the next part wasn't about my pain anymore. It was about my daughter's safety inside a house where money was used as control. And I had to decide how far I was willing to go to protect her. Because the sweetest revenge isn't humiliating your ex. It's breaking the cycle for your kid. When Ava texted that her mom and Scott were fighting and that Scott said she owed him, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Fear. Not fear that I'd be embarrassed. Not fear that Kendra would hate me. Fear that my daughter was living in a house where love and money were tied together like strings, and now the strings were tightening. I asked Ava to call me. She did, voice shaking. "He's yelling," she whispered. "He's saying I'm ungrateful." I took a slow breath and kept my voice calm. "Where are you right now?" I asked. "In my room," she said. "Is the door locked?" I asked. "Yes," she whispered. "Okay," I said. "You are safe. You do not go downstairs until things calm down. If you feel unsafe, you call 911. Do you understand me?" There was a pause. Then she said, "Yes." I hated that I had to say that to my own child at 19, but I also refused to pretend adult tantrums can't become dangerous. Then Ava said something that made my stomach drop. "He's saying the car was alone." "Alone?" I repeated. Ava sniffed. "He says I signed something. Like a promissory note." My heart started pounding. "Ava," I said, "did you sign anything?" Ava hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. She whispered, "He said it was just paperwork for the dealership." My chest tightened. "Do you have a copy?" I asked. Ava said, "I think Mom has it." I exhaled slowly. "Okay," I said. "This is important. You do not sign anything else. You do not agree to anything tonight." Ava started crying. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I thought it was a gift." I said gently, "That's why it was public. That's why it was Christmas. That's why it was humiliating. It was never just a gift. It was leverage." Ava went quiet. Then she whispered, "What do I do now?" I said, "You come to my house." Ava inhaled sharply. "I can't," she whispered. "Mom will freak out." "I know," I said, "but you're an adult, and you are allowed to leave a house that is using money to control you." Ava hesitated. "Can you pick me up?" she asked softly. My throat tightened. "Yes," I said. "Tell me when." We waited 30 minutes until the shouting downstairs quieted. Ava slipped out with a backpack. I drove to her mom's house and parked a block away so it didn't become a spectacle. Ava walked to my car quickly, shoulders hunched, and got in like she was escaping. When I saw her face under the streetlight, I felt a wave of grief. She looked younger than 19. She looked like a kid who had just realized adults can lie. I drove her to my place. She sat in silence the whole way. When we got inside, I gave her a blanket, food, water, and I did what I should have done years ago. I didn't lecture. I just created safety. Ava slept on my couch that night like she used to when she was little. At 7 a.m., my phone exploded. "Kendra, where is she?" "Kendra, you kidnapped my daughter." "Kendra, bring her back now." Scott texted too, from a number I didn't even have saved. "You're interfering. She owes me money." That made my blood run cold. He said it like a creditor, not a stepfather. I replied once, calmly, to Kendra, "Ava is safe. She's 19. She chose to come here. Do not contact her. Communicate through me." Then I blocked both numbers for a few hours so Ava could wake up without chaos. When Ava woke up, she looked embarrassed. "I'm sorry," she said. "You don't have to apologize for protecting yourself," I replied. Ava sat at my kitchen table and said quietly, "I think they used me." I nodded. "Yes," I said, "and they used me too." Ava swallowed. "Mom said you were selfish," she whispered. "She said you didn't support her." I kept my voice calm. "I paid child support. I showed up. I was excluded. That's the truth." Ava nodded slowly. "I believe you," she whispered. Then she asked the hardest question. "Why didn't you fight harder?" I stared at my mug. "Because I was afraid," I admitted. "Afraid you'd hate me. Afraid I'd make things worse. Afraid I'd be the bad guy." Ava's eyes filled. "You weren't the bad guy," she said. That sentence healed something in me I didn't know was still bleeding. Then we handled the practical problem, the alleged promissory note. Ava called the dealership and asked what paperwork existed. They told her she wasn't on a loan, but there was a separate private agreement between Scott and Ava that wasn't part of the dealership contract. That meant Scott had created his own loan paperwork outside of the car purchase to hold over her. Ava looked sick when she heard that. "What does that mean?" she asked me. It means he made you feel like it was a gift, I said, but he wanted the power to demand repayment if you ever stopped obeying. Ava whispered, "That's disgusting." "Yes," I said. Ava asked if she should go home. I said no, not yet. We contacted a lawyer for a consult. The lawyer told Ava to demand a copy of any signed document, in writing, and not to acknowledge any debt until she saw it. The lawyer also said that even if she signed something, there may be defenses if it was misrepresented and if she was pressured. Ava wrote her mom a short message. "I need a copy of any document Scott claims I signed. Email it to me. Do not contact me by phone." Kendra replied, "You're disrespectful." Scott replied, "You owe me." Ava didn't respond. Then something happened I didn't expect. My mother called. She sounded shaken. "Kendra called me," she said. I sighed. "Let me guess. She says I kidnapped Ava." My mom whispered, "Yes." I asked, "Did you believe her?" There was a long pause. Then my mom said, quietly, "No." That was new. My mom continued, "She's saying horrible things about you, but after what you showed me, I can't unsee it. I think we all let Scott become your replacement." My throat tightened. "Mom," I said, "I didn't want to be replaced. I wanted to be a dad." My mom started crying. "I know," she whispered. "I'm sorry." That apology was rare in our family. It mattered. The next weeks were slow rebuilding. Ava stayed with me part-time. She went back to school. We had awkward dinners. We talked more than we had in years. We kept it honest. She admitted she felt pressured to perform gratitude towards Scott because Scott and Kendra framed everything as, "Look what he does for you." Ava said she felt guilty all the time, like she had to earn love with praise. I told her love doesn't work like that. At least, it shouldn't. Eventually, Ava asked to meet in a neutral place with Kendra, without Scott. She wanted to try to repair the relationship with her mom without the stepdad controlling the room. They met. It went badly. Kendra insisted Ava was brainwashed. Kendra refused to discuss the loan document. Kendra demanded Ava apologize to Scott. Ava left and came back to my house shaking. "She chose him," she whispered. "I didn't celebrate. I didn't say, 'I told you so.' I just said, 'I'm here.' Now, it's been a few months since Christmas. The car is still at Kendra's. Ava no longer drives it. She said every time she looked at it, she felt sick. Scott is furious, because without Ava participating, the whole gift performance falls apart. That's the sweetest revenge part. Not a fight, not a public humiliation, just the truth removing the power from the symbol. Ava returned the handkerchief to me one day. She placed it on my table carefully and said, "I'm sorry." I told her, "Keep it." She looked confused. I said, "It reminds me of the day you woke up." Ava started crying. I cried too. Because the sweetest revenge I've ever tasted wasn't watching Scott lose his shiny moment. It was watching my daughter learn the difference between love and control, and then choose love. So, Aita for leaving on Christmas and refusing to play along? Aita for recording Scott, collecting receipts, and showing Ava the truth? Some family members think I turned her against her mom. They say I'm bitter. They say I'm jealous. But here's what I know. I didn't turn Ava against anyone. I answered her questions honestly. If the truth turns someone against you, it means your behavior can't survive daylight. That's the end of my story. Not perfect, not clean, but real. And for the first time in years, I feel like a dad again.